Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. March 16th. Roll call. Norman Thornton.
Present.
Tony. Chikara Imba. I'm here. Next thing is the agenda in front of you. I'll give you a quick minute to and let me know if you'd like. We could turn our mics on too. So I would like to recommend one change to the agenda and would like to add election of officers this evening. So that will go after open forum and before adjournment. So I would need a motion and then to be voted on.
I think if you look, Mr. Chairman, 5 annual reorganization, is that meant to include?
Yes.
Oh, that includes the,
Covers it.
oh, okay. Very good. Have a discussion. Thank you.
I should have been worded, could have been worded better.
Okay. Okay. Next is the minutes. You should have a copy of the minutes from January. If you haven't, please take a quick moment to review the minutes.
I'm good with it.
Okay, I'd like to have a vote to accept the minutes from last month.
I vote aye.
I second.
Someone needs to make a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay,
I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Sounds good. So our first action item, and okay, our microphones are on. We have a request for exception, First Town Center, Dumfries Development Group, LLC. And Mr. Singh, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Staff goes first.
very good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Janae Prevost White. I am the Director of Public Works for the town of Dumfries. Tonight, we're here to review an application to grant an exception to encroach into the RPA. The applicant, Mr. Pete Singh, is proposing a 428,000 square foot mixed-use development on Main Street within the PMUD and Chesapeake Bay overlay districts within the town, adjacent to a small tributary that has been, that leads directly to Quantico Creek. The tributary has been determined previously by the town and by the applicant to be a perennial stream. Perenniality means that the stream has continuous flow of surface water throughout the year in parts of its catchment during the season of normal rainfall. The localities within the Chesapeake Bay program that have streams that are determined to be perennial must create 2 buffers beyond those points of perenniality of the stream and or any wetlands that are contiguous to the stream and all FEMA special flood hazard areas. Those 2 buffers include the RMA or Resource Management Area and the RPA Resource Protection Area. The RPA buffer is defined as that component of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area comprised of lands at or near the shoreline that have an intrinsic water quality value due to the ecological and biological processes they perform or are sensitive to impacts which may result in significant degradation to the quality of state waters. The 100-foot buffer is measured 100-foot landward from the stream. So, by show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the Chesapeake Bay buffer? Okay, so I have a little bit, right? You've heard of it, right? Might not can take a test on it. So I'm going to run through briefly and give you a little bit of background so that you can make a more informed decision about what you're voting on tonight. Next slide. Oh my goodness, I can't read this. So the Chesapeake Bay, as we all know, comprises of is surrounded by seven different states, including Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, and did I say Pennsylvania? I believe parts of New York. Yeah, and I said Washington, D.C., yes. So all of these watersheds all drain to what we know as a Chesapeake Bay estuary. It is the largest estuary on the East Coast. And as many of you know, provides not only water quality, but also a great economic benefit to all of those states that surround it. Next slide. So in this picture is the picture of the Cuyahoga River fire of 1969. In 1969, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire. It subsequently caught on fire 11 times. This is actually in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. Now, when it caught on fire, it wasn't that big of a deal at the time because it had caught on fire before, and it was a small oil spill, which was a result of all the industries that were located along the Cuyahoga River. But that particular instance wound up in a Time magazine article that sparked an environmental kind of revolution at that point. As a result of this, the Clean Water Act was adopted in 1972 under US President Nixon. So the EPA study, as a result of that act, these 7 states got together and decided to protect the largest estuary that it has within its boundaries, and that's the Chesapeake Bay. And they adopted that program. Each state adopted that program, including the state of Virginia. And what is now known as the Bay Act is what all the localities that have adopted it run the Chesapeake Bay program. Next slide. So there are many rivers and watersheds that drain, like I said, the James River, the York River, the Susquehanna, and the Potomac, and the Rappahannock River all drain to the Chesapeake Bay. There are 6.8 million people that live in just the Potomac watershed alone. It is said that no person in the watershed, in all of the watersheds combined, lives more than 2 miles away from a water body, a stream or river that drains to the Chesapeake Bay. Next slide. So it's important that we protect this buffer area because it provides water quality, like I read to you early. What that 100-foot buffer does is clean the water prior to it getting to the stream. So as you notice along Quantico Creek, it's pretty overgrown, right? It has trees and leaves and kudzu and poison ivy and all the stuff that's not fun to look at, right? But the bugs and the birds and the bees and the snakes and the crawfish love it because it cleans the water and it provides habitat for them as well as food. So it is through studies, it's been determined that that 100-foot buffer is the most critical to protect our waterways. So I'm not quite sure if you all know that the town is part of an MS4 program. We actually hold an MS4 permit, which is a municipal separate stormwater permit. And that permit says that as a locality, if you maintain a sewer system that drains rainwater directly into a water body, you are responsible for making sure the only thing that goes through that drain is rainwater. That means no grease, no oil, no sand, no dirt, no dog poo, no trash, no McDonald's cups, no diapers, nothing. And so that's what I'm here to help the town maintain. But the biggest reason why that happened was because it was studied that construction activity was just the largest contributor of sediment to our streams in the Chesapeake Bay, and it was causing too much loading, which means sediment deposits and things like that in the bay. And so we all have a responsibility to reduce that loading to make the streams healthier. So just to connect the dots for you, when you fertilize your grass grows because you put nitrogen on it. When it rains, it takes all that unused nitrogen and dumps it into the river. So if grass grows on your lawn, it also grows in the stream. And too much grass growth chokes out the sunlight. And when you choke out the sunlight, it causes algae blooms, and algae blooms kill fish. So we don't want that to happen. So that next slide. So this is just a quick diagram of if you were to, cut a section through the stream, through the earth. This is that 100-foot buffer you can see with all the trees and the grass in it. Part of that also includes a 100-year floodplain and then the state waters. So it's that buffer area that we're trying to protect. It also includes wetlands that also, as you all know, do a great deal of filtering for the environment. Next slide. So this brings us back to Mr. Singh's development. The green area is Garrison Park, which sits right behind this building. The little L-shaped building just above that is Town Hall. The large treed triangle-shaped area is, as well as the row of parcels delineated above it, is Mr. Singh's proposed area of development. Next slide. This is the RPA buffer laid over top of that. And the large swath of blue area at the bottom is also floodplain. So
Sorry, what was that last word you used? Filtering?
Floodplain.
Is it also filtering? Is that what you said?
Floodplain, yes. Next slide. So I apologize for the technology, but this is as close as I can get. There is a very faint white area. You can see I tried to transpose Mr. Singh's development over top of the parcel mapper. Unfortunately, we don't have our own GIS system, so this is what I had to use. So if you notice, there's a squiggly line running through that has blue around it all the way down to the deeper blue line at the bottom.
Yeah, so all the way to the right and down to the side.
Yeah, there's a small encroachment of a pool into that light blue area. Yeah, up further a little bit, Nick. Up. There you go, right there.
Oh, okay. Now
This proposed encroachment is in its total over 11,000 square feet. Next slide. You can't see this, and neither can I, but what it basically says, is that Because there is a house already on the land, the land is considered redevelopment, but redevelopment is only allowed in the RPA area when you do not increase the size of the impervious surface, which means the house and the driveway and any other structures that are on the property. So Mr. Singh was informed that staff would not support the encroachment into the RPA, and he would have to ask for the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant an exception to encroach into the RPA. And that's where we are. Does anyone have any questions?
So what are you asserting? Are you asserting that his encroachment would be detrimental to the waterway that you are presenting? Is that what you're basically saying?
On a basic level, he's not allowed to encroach at all. That's what I'm saying. Because based on the background that I just gave you, we know that by disturbing that 100-foot buffer area, he would further degrade the stream quality, the water quality of the stream. So as it is, the entire development itself, he's turning basically undisturbed land and completely paving it over. And that's going to have an impact to the water quality there. They are by law, by state law, treating that water before it gets there. So it's not like he's doing it haphazardly. They have responsibly designed a water quality system. It is just this particular encroachment that's not allowed. And the reason why I can't support it is because I can only support encroachment into the RPA, one, if it's allowed, which means it's a water dependent structure, meaning it's a boat dock or a boat put in or a marina, something like that, that's dependent, its use is dependent on the water. It is also not a public roadway. It is also not anything, a passive recreation, like a path to get to up the marina. So unless it meets those qualifications, I can't accept it. Now, I would be able to do it administratively if he had no place else left to go. There are many instances where lots are small, and because of zoning setbacks, you all know the houses have to be pushed backwards and inwards, sometimes from both sides if it's on a corner. And if there's a stream anywhere around there or an RPA buffer, sometimes it causes conflict. And if they have no place else to go because of a buffer, or because, say, there's a Dominion power line running behind them and they don't want their house to sit underneath of a power line, or there's a ditch, or there is basically no room. There's a number of reasons that could happen where I would administratively be allowed to grant it because there's no place else for the house to go. But in this particular case, Mr. Singh's starting from scratch, and he has a very large piece of land where he could redesign this parcel to not encroach into the RPA.
So I hear what you're saying, and it sounds as though this case revolves around or centers on him being able to present a reason, a legitimate reason why he should be given this type of access.
Yes, there are reasons.
Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
And do you have any listing of such reasons that he might present?
I'm sorry, I do. I don't have it in front of me. Mr. Singh, in his application, I'm not quite sure whether you were given the application prior to, it lists all of he has to satisfy all of the requirements listed as to why he should be granted that exception.
And has he presented such to you? That's
no, that is, no, he gave no redesign of the initial first submission for the site plan.
Okay, sounds like Mr. Singh has a burden to overcome.
Yes, sir. So are there any other questions? Okay.
Not this time.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes,
Now, Mr. Singh.
Can I use the podium? Yeah. This is good enough.
I
I think for the recording, it's better for you to use the podium.
Right, please.
We started, my name is Pete Singh. Welcome, everybody. I'll keep my talk directly to the point because we all have to go and mow the lawns. It's a beautiful day outside, but it's too early for a barbecue.
Can I say one thing before you start, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us your address? Where are you located?
My office is located at 3600 Point Center Court in Dumfries, Virginia.
Okay.
The property address is next door. If you look out of your window, that's where the property is, and that's where this issue of the creek came on board.
Okay.
Staff just presented to you their position on what is happening. And yes, thank you very much for the nice educational pitch. And if I go home and do a YouTube on that, that's what my family is going to notice, that there is somebody here in Dumfries who is taking active interest in keeping compliance to what all we call how to keep Chesapeake Bay clean.
Yes.
And thank you, Janae, for that. Yes, as a fellow resident and property owner here in Dumfries for the last 2 decades, I am also committed to maintaining that Chesapeake Bay quality of water. In the process, over the years, we have owned this property next door, which is a little over 10 some acres. We took it through what is known as the town council approval, which is the MZP and the rezoning exercise over the last many years. The town council did approve this project in its entirety, and in the records which were shared with the staff over the last many years, and more recently in 1920, that time frame, Janae and her staff did point out, Pete, there is a RPA area which the staff would have asked me to come and appear before you all because you have the authority to understand the circumstances and give a ruling. Now, what is this ruling about? As I just mentioned to you, there is acreage. We intend to develop that into what we call the first town center here in Dumfries. This is not a new pitch. Many of you have heard about it in the past, and so has the town council. And the town council blessed it. On those plans, we had shown that there is an RPA, and all we need is about 11,000 square feet of area to complete a swimming pool, a wetland part of it, the project. And that's what the plan today shows as well. This area, which is about 11,000 plus or minus, yes, it is in an RPA area. I accept that fact. Now, the ordinances, which is the thick books which sit in the town library, give options as to how to address those concerns. And we have made full attempt in addressing those concerns. And one of the key things is that, yes, even if you grant that 11,000 square feet, that does not mean that we are violating the Chesapeake Bay regulations, because we intend to supplement that with additional trees and other measures as mandated in these books.
Can I stop you there for a
Yes, sir.
moment? Everything you've presented so far does not refute what has already been said. I think what you would like to do is to present evidence that refutes what we must accept. You must find some way to refute what she has said. I'm not hearing that.
I think he's getting that.
Well, first of all, if you want to hear that story, it goes back, 24 months ago when we started working with the town council and the staff for getting the MZP approval. And the MZP approval, which was granted after a very tedious cycle, not because she and her staff does not want to work with me, just because the pandemic came in the middle.
Yes,
And I'm a victim of the pandemic. There's no doubt about it.
we all are.
Yes. Well, welcome, and I'm part of the team.
Yeah.
Now that as we get out of the pandemic, it's time to develop this land. Why just this land? It's time to develop the entire Dumfries Main Street corridor. For many years, the town of Dumfries spent a lot of money to outside consultants who came and gave the staff as well as the town council advice on how to go about doing that. I strongly suggest you take a moment and go to the town website and read the planned Main Street corridor package. It's about a 20-page document in which illustrations are made how to address building in this area, Main Street. Now, you saw the blue slide? The entire Main Street had that issue. You go up the street, you go down the street, you go behind the street, you go to Fraley Boulevard, and tomorrow, I can tell you, our dear friends at Department of Transportation want to come and take care of the entire wetlands, and they'll be in front of you making a big pitch, much bigger than what I have said. My request is only limited to 11,000 square feet. And if you have a moment, just go out the window and see what is there today. Today, there is a depleted home which we had to get rid of because it became a public nuisance. There is a driveway, there is a foundation, which historically is more than that 11,000 square feet. So what we are just asking is that us be given the privilege or request to you all is let's move that 11,000 square feet, which is there today, enhance it and make it more publicly sensitive to what we need here in Dumfries. Not what this project needs. Forget about that for a minute. What will it create? This waiver of 11,000 square feet, what will it create for the town of Dumfries? Yes, it's going to create dollars, revenue, treasury will go up. Let's put that aside. But it will provide a place because of the project, which is a mixed-use project with things which the town of Dumfries needs. The town of Dumfries people need a place to come and walk up and buy an ice cream instead of that place at JoJo's which keeps closing every other year, all right? Or have a place to eat other than McDonald's. Let me give you another good news. I tried to put Wendy's as well as even Chick-fil-A, which you see across the street, on this lot. And it was completely denied. Why? Because our ordinances didn't allow for a drive-through. And that's good, because we don't want unnecessary traffic. We want people walking on Main Street. And this project is a complement to that. Janae also pointed out a couple of things in all the slides and presentations, that what can we do to preserve the Chesapeake Bay? And I do want to point out a couple of key things which we are doing to protect the Chesapeake Bay, protect the waters of Virginia. And number one is if you walk down the street today, you will see, even though our good friends at VDOT built this road, Main Street, and they maintain it, they address on a grade of 0 to 10. Every citizen will give them a 0 when it comes to protecting the bay because they let all the water, all the oil, all the rainwater go directly into the same creek. Is that right? And there is no authority. This is what I want to point out over here. There is no authority with the town staff to point out to VDOT, hey, gentlemen, fix this thing because it's a public nuisance. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so it is like they use this term called, it's been grandfathered. And nobody can tell them to go fix it. Why I'm pointing this particular item out? Because today, that water with that oil in it, which is, it's highway, I expect it to be, goes through my property and gets up into the same creek. And guess what? As Junaid pointed out, we are taking steps so that in future that will not happen. And what we are doing is all the water which is on Main Street, which is VDOT right away, is in a gutter. We're going to collect that from that gutter and treat it before it ends up being in the creek and then ultimately into the Chesapeake Bay. So we, as good citizens of Dumfries, are doing our part. You cannot say that we are ignoring it. All my request today is that the 11,000 or so square feet, which is sitting idle, as you see it right now, rainwater is falling on the asphalt, going into the creeks, or rainwater is falling on the basement, in the basements and going into the creek. We want to collect that water and treat it and then let it go into the creek. Yes, in turn, I've asked that waiver be granted so that we can go ahead with the project and create a destination here in Dumfries. Our mayor loves to use the word destination, and that's where I picked up this buzzword. And guess what? He's been so successful in creating that destination. I keep my fingers crossed that the guys across the street at the landfill with the new ownership will be able to finish that project, which we all look forward to. Now, this project, which I'm alluding to, is the Rosie's Casino up the street, has access from Main Street in front of my property. And I don't want to have, more dirty water going through into the creek because they will have a lot more cars going up. And I'm taking the responsibility of getting that pollution control issues under control while it is going through my property. And I can also say, Nick and Janae are doing an excellent job in making sure the rich guys up street, the Churchill Downs or whoever they call themselves, take care of their issues at their end. And it does not become a burden on us all. With that said, thank you for your time. If there's anything more you have questions, I'm here to answer.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Would it be possible for you to do your project without encroaching into that area?
You call it encroachment, yes. And that's the term which is being used in the ordinances as well. This is also a redevelopment site where there is an existing structure, an existing asphalt. So what you're saying, indirectly I'm asking is give me credit for it because the existing asphalt is going to be removed and, and replanted. The area is going to be replanted, regrown, so that what Junaid just mentioned about the butterflies coming and the birds having the nests, that will continue. Otherwise, no butterflies are coming on the asphalt. And that's where my commitment is.
I hear that you have an existing property that could itself be a problem and is a problem. But you are saying that because VDOT or others have also an issue, that we should grant you the same privileges that they might have. And what I'm hearing from Jeanette, if I'm pronouncing the name right, is that she doesn't have the authority to override it unless we say, yeah, go ahead and do it. But I don't think that you should go ahead and do it. I don't think anybody who's causing a problem that you're denoting should be able to do it either. So I think that some action needs to be taken on all of those fronts. You are claiming that you will provide some type of service that will then clean the waters that then proceed into the bay. I don't see her accepting that, and I don't know why. But I think with just those words, we cannot move forward.
I'm not wordsmithing her words. What we are doing is something which has not been done on Main Street or any of the properties on this side of the creek.
Two wrongs don't make it right.
Okay, what is it?
Two wrongs don't make it right.
No, I'm not saying two wrongs. The wrong is also on my side. And
hear
I
that.
want an opportunity to correct
hear
that
that.
wrong. And the only way that can be corrected at this stage is because it is termed as an encroachment for redevelopment purposes. Redevelopment is allowed. Encroachment, you're being made aware of, because if you go look at this redevelopment, there's existing encroachment. All we're saying is here, now let's combine these two things together. And as a result of all this, here are the benefits.
Well,
Not-
as far as Janae's presentation, she addressed that. She said that you cannot increase the size of the area that is in the RPA area. And that is considered, as Ms. Imbo said, that is considered encroachment.
I am not increasing the size. Okay, let's look at slightly different perspective. Land is land, and the land is developed. And a development has certain amount of a footprint. And that footprint is in the RPA today.
Right.
Tomorrow, we want to reconfigure that footprint for the benefit of creating something on Main Street which is pedestrian friendly.
Mhm.
And more importantly, it's in line with the ordinances and the comprehensive plan, which mandates these days that only a certain type of projects can be done along Main Street. This, if you have not read the comprehensive plan lately, this Main Street area is called, what is it called? The new thing. This center development area.
It's just the Main Street Small Area Plan.
Yeah, Main Street plans. If there is a separate document written out there, what can be done, where it can be done, and how it can be done. Both in terms of, and Janae also pointed out, hey, Pete, have you done another analysis of what can be done? We are constrained on this land for two reasons. One, of course, we want to protect the nature as much as practical. The nature is little over, statistics, it's little over 3 acres, which is about 100,000 square feet of, that blue things you saw. And all we are asking is to redevelop 11,000 square feet out of it.
Mhm.
Not just, go haywire and run the bulldozer wherever, no. This man does a good job at that. He'll stop me in a minute.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where it is.
I still come back to what the objection is by not her, but her office. And I don't think she's just throwing around a term. I think that term has a meaning and it's encoded in the law for that reason. And I haven't heard anything else from you that refutes that reasoning. I totally empathize with you in terms of the town developing, but at what price to what? These things have been set up for a reason. I don't hear any reason that really overcomes it for me. Others may feel differently.
Mr. Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hearing what you're saying. Also, thank you very much for that very informative presentation from our new public director. I understand the difference. I think a little different than you, Mr. Thornton, my colleague. I see she's saying that as an official, her position is that she cannot support that based on her reducing responsibilities. But the onus lies with this body. As if we can see the overall picture. What is this town trying to do?
I'm sorry?
What is this town, what are the people in this town trying to do in terms of development and creating a different quality of life, if I might say? You know, to what extent? How do we mitigate Mr. Singh's encroachment? He says there's a large 100,000 square feet of area that he need 10,000, 11,000 feet of it to complete his project or to move forward this project. And if you look at the overall picture, if you support the development and improvement of the quality of life, is that a bigger price to pay? That onus lies with these four of us. You know, they're presenting their position.
Right.
You know, but we have in our authority to grant his request for encroachment. Now, not for encroachment, but for the building in that area. You know, and it's a matter of, do we sit and see it as a colossal thing that's going to be detrimental to the overall Chesapeake Bay and the quality of life, or is it something that is supporting the drive from this town to move forward? You know, to develop, to improve, to change this Main Street corridor. And I hate to keep going back to history, but I was on the planning commission 15 years ago when this thing first, when we were discussing it then. And there were always roadblocks and obstacles in places saying, well, so we had to change some rules. We had to have some text amendments. And all of it was in supporting the overall vision of changing what this Main Street corridor looked like. And that has been the onus since I have been here. That has been the drive, you know. And from time to time, you run across these ordinances that require that you have to look at them, and people have to, because we are a quasi judicial board,
Judicial body.
right?
Yep.
And we have the authority to grant his request. You know, she doesn't.
Indeed, that's true.
So that's what I'm saying. So it's a matter of us seeing what we're trying to do, what he's trying to do, and understanding her position too as an official of this town. She is bound by duty to come forth like that. But is that the overall, is that what that's what the town, the people in the town want? Can we support that? Or do we say, no, that 10% encroachment, from what I'm hearing, would constitute a hardship on the entire Chesapeake Bay? Or is that enough for us to put a stop to this project? Now, I'm hearing him saying that he's about mitigating it by treating the water. He's offering some other kinds of, if I'm correct, Mr.
Yes, sir.
You know, so that this water is running over this.
We're treating all the water, and we are also enhancing the tree lines and new plantations, because we are adjacent to a RPA area, right?
Right.
That RPA area, by our commitment to the town of Dumfries in the site plan, is being improved with new trees, new plants, new brushes. And of course, Janae has very openly pointed it out that such plantations must be native Virginia plants.
Have you presented this site to the planning commission?
Yes, sir.
And what was their?
They approved it.
Okay. Okay. So again, and I'm understanding that also.
We have to go through steps.
Right.
First was the entire site plan approval. The next step was to take it to the planning commission and then the architecture review board, because they play a significant role in RPA areas.
Right.
And then after that, it was presented to the town council, and the town council has approved it.
So those other boards,
Entitlements are in place.
so those other review boards have approved this moving
That is
forward,
correct.
because
Yes.
it is congruent with the overall vision,
That is-
as I understand it, for this town as listed in the comprehensive plan.
Let's
Am I
talk
correct?
to Jeanette again
So-
about the impact that is scientifically known to happen if this goes into action. That's all I want to deal with here is what
Okay,
what scientific facts are known about this size and its impact on the problem. So, Christian, would you please address
But
that?
then I have,
as I mentioned a minute ago, may I respond, sir?
Sure.
As I mentioned a minute ago, that the site is a depleted site today.
Yes.
So therefore, it is a nuisance and it is not doing what it's supposed to do, which is protect the Chesapeake Bay.
Got it. But that doesn't mean that there's not a feature that is in someone else's plan to make that happen in a different way. One does not negate the other.
Mr. Tim. Mr. Tim, did
Yeah.
I have the floor just now?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. You know, I think it would be beneficial too, if we all, because I have on other occasions, we have on occasion visited the site and look at it, had a visual look at it and see what the person is planning. You know, I mean, I know we are here to make a decision, but I think in order to make an informed decision, this information, and again, I don't want to be, but when you get information the day of, it's very hard to kind of digest this information and look at the various aspects that we need to look at and make an informed decision. You know, so I mean, again, I've been on these various committees and boards and understand the vision that has been articulated and expected for this town. You know, so you know that's why I would look at ways of working with Mr. Singh to allow this project to move forward. You know, if this body can grant a 10% encroachment on an area that's 100 yards or 11%, then I think in keeping the vision and as well as the other mitigating circumstances that other mitigating efforts that he had put in place to make sure that that water is not detrimental or in any way a negative impact on the entire stream itself, I think that's something we need to look at. You know, that's just me. Now I'll give the floor up to you, Mr. Thorne.
Thank you. All right. If we were to go down that route, then I think would definitely have to be something written and contractual for that to happen, that he is guaranteeing that this would happen and that would happen, the other happened. But on the other side of that, I think we need to look at what the scientific evidence is about what that impact would have, what that particular piece of property would have in the future. Even though right now it's not being used in such a way that it is beneficial to the bay, I don't know that in the future that would be the case from his mere talking about it now. That would have to be something committed to writing that this is going to be the case. And it would have to be accepted by it. Because we get to judge it, it has to be accepted. That would be accepted. But without, like, I could read these documents over and over again and still not have the scientific depth to make a real decision. So I would like for her to present some evidence that shows that if it proceeds as it is, it's a problem. And if he goes further with what he's talking about, it's a problem, unless he does these other things that make it not a problem. That's what I'd like to hear.
I think you made good points. All I can add to it is two things. One is applicability of the law, which is their responsibility, and that my commitment that the site plan, the final approval, will be in accordance with the law. And second is that we have been through the planning commission as well as the town council on these issues. And there is almost a $400,000 commitment on my part towards the goodwill in the town, which is for proffers, road improvements, light improvements, this, that, okay? Which is going to be bonded with the town so that it is carried out. You cannot just bond one small thing and say, oh, bond this 11,000 square feet. You know? Tony, let me make a quick correction. Our site is about 400,000 square feet total, of which only 11 which is less than, 1/4 of.
Let me understand, how much? There's 100,000 feet, the buffer area is 100,000, 100 feet from the creek itself, the buffer area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the entire area that we are talking about,
Here, may I-
how long, how long?
Yes.
Yeah, Peter, yes.
Bring it closer and I'll-
Okay.
what we're talking about is,
Can you see this?
Yes.
You need to see this.
this is the 12 acres.
Right.
Okay? And this is the creek which runs between the townhouse.
Right.
And my property.
Mhm.
Well, whoever built the townhouse, we don't know. But today, what we're facing with is staff has raised the point that please make all attempts not to encroach in this dash area.
Mhm.
And all we are encroaching in the current plan, as you see right now, is this hyphen, which is that 11,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Whereas the total site is 428,000. Out of 428,000 square feet of land, which I own here in the town of Dumfries, only 11,000 square feet may encroach, or in this plan is encroaching the RPA.
Yes.
Yes, so that is the percentage wise, if you want to get a handle on what percentage.
The percentage doesn't mean anything to me. This is why. I don't know what percentage you're using has what effect on what we are talking about as a hazard to the bay. And until I know what percentage it adds or subtracts to that problem,
You can
I'm
see,
at a loss.
you can see that.
I
Can
cannot,
you see that?
I'm not a scientist enough to see through that. That is not that I can't reason about it, but I'm asking.
That's
her-
your
I'm
deficiency.
I'm
Let me say this. I'm seeing, here's the creek, and you saying your line is here, right?
Yeah,
Right here. So common sense tells me that there's, this is about, let's say this is 50 feet, then this is 20 at the most, of 15. I mean, you can judge that, you can see that.
it's not even.
If I were to if I were to have a bottle and I said, hey, drink this. It's a very small bottle. Drink it. You can't tell me you know what the poison level is. That's not reasonable.
So Gary, just something you want to,
Please, if you got some additional stuff to add to this, if we're making a decision,
Mr. Singh?
Now, if my understanding is, did you say the Architecture Review Board also has seen this? And they approved it?
Yeah,
And the planning commission reviewed it?
everyone,
And the planning, the town council has seen it and approved it?
yes,
So the staff saw a glitch in it, said that you were encroaching, so you need to get a variance or just an exception
exception,
so that we can move forward, right?
yes.
Okay,
That's the staff.
let me just fully understand it.
It's not that they are opposing it because this is two years of their work. All they're saying is because this technicality is there and the BZA has the authority to grant
To
it.
grant you the, yes.
That's all they're saying.
Once we get some science, I'll be listening very hard.
And let me say this too. Maybe Mr. Thornton, I think that you bring some very valid, you always bring valid and relevant points. That has to be considered. There's no question about that. So but please don't misinterpret what I'm saying.
Oh,
Because
I think we're all here to bring our thoughts
exactly.
and then but I think we don't have all the facts yet. And so that's why we'd like her to present the information.
And I still would like to have a visual, a visit to that property and look at it. Yeah.
Just for your knowledge, this is what you will see here on Main Street 24 months from today.
Yeah, I saw that, I think in what they. handed out.
Just so you know, I've been here for over 30 years. And so,
Thank you, sir.
and so I've seen quite a lot, and I've seen quite a lot.
I had to laugh.
Quite a lot. So, but I just want to hear some more information that applies to this in a scientific way, instead of me reading papers that don't necessarily bring those facts to light. A small bottle of poison can be just as effective as one.
Read a book, please take in this about the water quality study, which scientifically has been
Okay.
and presented to staff.
Okay, well, let's hear from him. I'm ready to listen.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I also just would like to add, with this project, I came in on the tail end of it, so I did not have the experience. I did not work with Mr. Singh through the Planning Commission and Town Council public hearings. But I just wanted to clarify some things in regards to the MCP that was approved. So in comparing this with the site plan that's currently being reviewed by staff, there's some changes that have been made in the design since then. So what this request from Mr. Singh is not going to delay the project. It's not going to stop the project from occurring. There are other design aspects that staff feels that this project, there are other design changes that we as a staff feel would be more appropriate compared to the current design of this layout. There's, for example, he could possibly move the pool out of the RPA and into on the other side of the pool house, which is being shown. There's a lot of changes that could be made, and he wouldn't have to go back to town council to get this done. He would just have to pre-submit the site plan showing that there's no encroachment in the RPA. We enjoy working with Mr. Singh. We just as staff have to do what we feel is best based on the knowledge and what the code says. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for that. As you know, as I've been here before, I've said, we like to know what alternatives are for the person who presents if we were to deny it. Do they have alternatives? We who have been trained to be on the BZA have been told that if there's no other choice, then that's one thing. If there are other choices, then those things should be considered as the things to do that cause a lesser harm. So, please continue.
So I would like to add that during the rezoning, it was decided that we would not address his encroachment into the RPA until we got to site plan review, because he had the opportunity to redesign it if he wanted to move it out of the RPA, because like Mr. Singh said, he was informed that he had an RPA encroachment. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. Maybe it might sound like I'm playing devil's advocate, but I'm trying to give you both sides of what's going on.
Okay.
So to Mr. Tony's point about what's good for the town, right? And you've been working on it for a really long time, and a lot of people would like to see this development come to fruition. As Nick said, this decision, either way, is not going to stop the development. Mr. Singh, you either grant it, and then he will be asked to perform and provide very strict guidelines as to how to mitigate that encroachment, or you deny it and he has to redesign the building. So this is not to say that the building is not wanted by staff or the town. It's just to say that the code requires that this is the process he has to go through. So unfortunately, I can't do it administratively, like I said before, because I haven't been presented a redesign, and he also hasn't told me, Jonay, because of proffers or because of site constraints, we can't move it anyplace else. I could come back, we could come back. You can take a site visit if you want to. You will go by yourself because I'm not stepping into those woods because it's crazy and gnarly and full of bugs. I will need a big giant can of bug spray. If you want me to go, I'd be happy to go with you. But like Mr. Thornton said, we drive by it every day, right? We see it all the time. We know the conditions that are out there. And 11,000 square feet, which is about a quarter of an acre, compared to the 489,000 plus square feet that is the property, seems like a drop in the bucket. So also let me explain that Mr. Singh's entire property is within a Chesapeake Bay protected area, the entire property, right? It's not just this 100 feet that I'm concerned about. The town of Dumfries years ago, before I came here, decided, because there's so many creeks and tributaries that run through the town and the town is so tiny, to regulate that the entire town is in a Chesapeake Bay area. If you go to Richmond, if you go to Alexandria, if you go to Orange County, they just have buffers. They just have the 100-foot and the 500-foot, and there's many areas that are not in Chess Bay. Unfortunately for the town, the entire thing is in Chess Bay. So the onus is on Mr. Singh and his engineer to treat the entire site, which they have done. But at the same time, he is also encroaching into the RPA. So he could very well put his development within that RMA area and never encroach into the RPA and only have to treat the water that comes off of his property. But in addition to what he has done, he's also encroaching into the RPA, which we have established what he's using is not allowed, right? If we were on the Possum Point Road and we were talking to the Campbell property and they wanted to encroach into the RPA by putting in a boat dock, guess what? That's allowed. And that's something that I could do administratively across my desk, but this is not that. So we could go through and I could bring back documentation that shows that one drop of rainwater removes 2,000 square feet of soil on denuded soil that doesn't have any grass. I could bring back all kinds of studies about how taking away buffers pollutes the water. Really, at this time, what is behooving of you is to see in Mr. Singh's application if he satisfied all of the requirements asking of the encroachment, right? One of them can't be money, and he hasn't brought it up, but just for your own edification, you can't say, well, it's going to cost me $2 million to move that pool out of the RPA. That can never be an excuse, right? He could say that it's not affording any more advantage to me over anybody else. He could also say that I'm only asking for enough just to do this, which he already said, right? And a number of other issues. It's up to you to determine whether he has met to the full extent of what the code says that you are allowed to allow the encroachment. Now, if you allow it, we go back. Mr. Singh submits his mitigation plan. I review the mitigation plan according to the riparian buffer mitigation manual, which says that for every tree he takes out, he's got to put a tree in, which says that he also has to put in ground cover and medium-sized cover and native non-invasive species, just like he said. My concern is he's built out so much of the property. I don't know if he has enough room to do that. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying that's a concern. I'm putting that out there. And he was we had this conversation during the rezoning process. So it's, what we don't want to do is for people to say, well, I can do it, but I can fix it over here, right? One of the things you have to keep in mind scientifically is, yes, he can put back trees and shrubs and ground cover. How long is it going to take to get back to the site that it is right now, that it gets to the level where it's providing water quality? It's going to take a while, right? How long has it been overgrown like this? I would say decades, right? I wouldn't even say a year or two. I've been here 2 years. It's always looked like this, right? My father-in-law lived in Fort Washington. We took Route 1 home to see him all the time. It's always looked like this. So it's that time period between the time that you take the soil away and you mitigate it, that the land is the most exposed, right? So it's not to say it's not allowed, right? That's what the buffer manual is for, because we know sometimes people have to encroach. Sometimes people allow it. Sometimes people don't care, right? And they put it back in. That's not for me to decide. It's just for me to say, according to the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, who audits our program, every time I allow an encroachment, I have to explain to them why. And my stance always has to be on the side of the code. So if Mr. Singh hasn't come to me and said, Jonae, we'll take the pool out, or we'll put it over here, or we've moved it as far as we can, and maybe we don't have building, but we have grading, I can live with that, right? Again, he still has to do all those things. What you have to understand about the RPA, nothing is allowed. So people think, oh, well, I can build a building over here and then I can grade back into the RPA. Can't do that either, right? Because when you grade, you've got to take out all that vegetation. People say, oh, I can build the house up to the edge and I can put my deck over into the RPA. Can't do that either. Out means out. So that is the line that I have to stay on. So I just want to make it clear to you that the science is already there. You can do a lot of research in between. I can give Nick a lot of research to give to you in the interim if that's what you want to do. We can have a site visit. Fortunately, it's spring now, so we can go out there and look. But really what I would like for you to focus on is, has Mr. Singh met the intent of asking you for the encroachment? Has he proven to you that it's all that he's allowed? Has he proven to you that he's not afforded any more extra privilege than anybody else would? Excuse me, I don't know them off the top of my head. I had it, it's in your report. And you can debate that among yourselves. You can take it home and review it that way, and then we can come back and visit it again. I would tell you to get familiar because there's another one coming. Okay. So if you want to take time to study, to Mr. Singh's point, the Rose also is doing an encroachment as well. And it's a different scenario, but they still have to come and ask for permission. So I just wanted to present that. Do you have any more questions about what is your responsibility or what it means if you vote one way or the other? Because I'm not here to influence you. I'm just here to argue my case, right? And I've had several cases where the board has adopted it and we move on from there. It's not going to be contentious. We're not going to deny Mr. Singh his site plan approval. Either he has to adjust it or he will always have to adjust it. Let me put it that way. He either adjusts the site plan by providing mitigation, or he adjusts the site plan by taking the impervious area out of the RPA buffer. It's one of those two things.
So if I may, everyone else made comments. I hadn't yet, but I love this. We've talked about this before. I've been waiting for opportunities for Dumfries to get built up and to be a place that you can walk to. And it's been a complaint. I've been here. Well, I was in the Navy. I was stationed down here at Quantico, so like the rest of you, I go through here and whatnot. And this is great. However, the RPA needs to be maintained. A lot of work has been done to clean up the Chesapeake Bay. And I was a biologist earlier. That's what I was going to school for when I was right out of high school. And I love the knowing that the animals are starting to come back. What is the fishermen and whatnot, they can now make money in that
Yes.
area. And I've been there myself. I've been fishing on the Chesapeake Bay. So it's great. It's a great
Yes.
place. Yes, okay, it's a small amount, but this one's a small amount and then the next one's a small. When do we say,
Right.
time out? So that's where I'm seeing. I would love to see this, sir. I would absolutely love it because this is what I've been waiting for, but it's just the encroachment into the RPA. That's what bothers me.
Anyone else?
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a question for you, so.
Oh, for Mr. Singh. All right.
Why haven't you looked into but it's not encroaching? Why haven't you?
It'll be a 2-year exercise, because then we have to go back to town council, planning commission, and all
Okay, so just time.
that. And time and a lot of money.
No doubt.
It's not inexpensive to get to this stage.
It was stated that if you made some minor adjustments, it wouldn't have to go back through town council and all
So
that.
you will have to go to the town council, because that would be an MCP change.
But
Okay, and we have already studied the points which she has raised. Are there alternatives? We are bound by the setbacks, by the RPA area, and also the height restriction to make it something which is practical, both financially as well as what the town would need with this revenue generating. I can keep the land the way it is and make it to a nice officer of the town would say, what's going on here?
Mhm.
Those things all have to play a role in it. It was also pointed out, and you have pointed out more than once, tell us scientifically what it makes sense of it. We have presented to the town's staff, and it's included in the applications which was in front of you, is an environmental report.
are you talking about this application? Talking about this?
No, there's a big packet called the environmental report
I don't have
on
that.
this RPA.
Does anybody else have that? I don't have it.
You received an electronic copy, right?
Oh, okay.
It was in there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This report tells me by a certified engineer what needs to happen should I encroach. And it specifically lists all the planting which has to be done for this encroachment. Very clearly. And this report is going to be part of the final approval package which the staff would eventually issue. I have to comply with these commitments which the town staff has accepted and going forward, then move it. Otherwise, you'll be dead up.
Mhm.
Okay, and these commitments are not out of the blue. They're not unique to this project because these are standards mandated by DEQ. Thank you. Yeah,
I guess my thing, another last thing.
Okay, go for it.
My feeling is, and I don't have a lot of thought process to go with it at the moment, is that you have another alternative. If the idea is that the risk of doing this is so low and the cost for doing otherwise is so high that we should then go with the risk as opposed to the cost. And I'm going, I don't think that that's the nature of what we should be looking at. we should be looking at, you have an alternative. It may cost you some more. I don't think it would be a problem dealing with the persons you've already committed themselves to this idea. So I'm in favor of not granting it based on that. Does anybody have any questions about the way I've said what I've said?
I also would like to just add something. So per the proffers on this project, the site plan has to be in substantial conformance to the MZPs. Substantial doesn't mean 100% down to the minutia of what was already approved. Because as everyone knows, things change over time. The RPA will move. Is that not correct, Jonae? The RPA moves?
They move out of the.
No, but the RPA can, it can, or
The
the,
line can be changed.
yeah, no, the flood, there's things that change in terms of what, in terms of both the market, which in terms of and what I'm talking about is how many people want to, come in and live at these apartments, because this is a mixed use project. So while we supported this through the rezoning process, through planning commission and through town council, we saw that there is room for improvement at the site plan stage, of course. And again, as I said before, I wasn't involved in all of this process and all of the original rezoning process. I came in at the very tail end when it was approved last April. But what I will say is, what Jonae said is 100% accurate. It's not anything that's contentious. If it's approved, it's approved. If it's denied, it's denied. But there are solutions with both. And that's what we would like to point out is in the long run, while this, this is the first big mixed use project in the town, we don't want to set a precedent that will lead to more and more development or encroachment in the RPA, because our goal is to conserve the RPA and ensure that no developments done in the RPA. And as we said before at town council and planning commission, we're in support of this project. We just feel that there are some better options on the table at this point. And to the 2-year process of, if there was an MZPA, it's not going to be that long. It wouldn't be that long. Even if there was one, it would be probably 3 to 4 months at most, just based on our knowledge of the current status of this project. And also we've seen these plans before. So it's just a formality. That's all it is. It's not going to be anything that's too tedious. And that's just a part of being a developer and doing development. Everything is done by code. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time tonight, everyone.
So my question is to the board here. Did you have a chance to review this before this meeting?
Yes.
Did you have a chance?
Apparently I missed something.
Okay.
I missed the packet that had all of these items in it. I don't know how. I got 2 pieces of email. I got 1 piece of email with 2 PDFs in it.
Right.
There was no PDF in it
It was
that
a
went to
link.
the extent
When did
that
you
he's
get it?
talking
It
about.
was very large. It was
But-
very large.
So,
Yeah. It was the packet that,
Jonae, do you have the packet?
yeah, so it's a packet that they have here. So it's,
Let's see. I'll show you what I have. This is what I received. I received the FTC BZA request form and I received the agenda. That's it.
okay,
So
so,
none of that has the kind of articulation that he's talking about.
okay.
So no, we didn't all.
I received the same 2 things you did.
Yeah, so that makes 2 of us who did not receive all of this articulation that is regulated here.
So I think it is on us to go back and review the packet
First, I need to receive it. Receive it. Like,
It was included in the email link. There was a link to follow.
oh, there was a link, yes.
Yes, there was a link. It was that because the files are so large, it won't send over our
Okay,
server. I attempted it multiple times to
Yeah,
diminish it, to ensure that it was able to be sent out. But again, things happen, but in the future, if you all have any questions or need anything printed out, please contact me. I'm free to, I'm more than willing to print out these large files for you all to be able to review.
Okay,
and correct me if I'm wrong, we have the responsibility to review this
Mhm.
and make sure that Mr. Singh has identified mitigating for the intent allowed for.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah.
It's 5 conditions.
5 conditions.
I
Okay.
believe it's on page 11 of the application narrative. If I'm recalling correctly, it's at the very end of it. There are 5 conditions that are directly taken from the town code.
Okay.
These 5 conditions must be met in order.
are you talking about what's called a task here? Oh, are you talking about this form?
On that one.
About 5 tasks?
Yep.
Okay, I
On
want
that
to make sure we're talking about the right thing.
So I think I have a recommendation that we table this at this point. We go back and review the packet that has been provided to us. Reviewing the 5 conditions and make sure that they are satisfied in the application. How do you,
I would second that. If you're making that a motion,
I'm making that a motion.
I would second that.
Any discussion?
We can do that.
Okay.
Vote.
I think you have something to say.
April.
further.
So just let me, those who agree, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Perfect.
So, yeah, we're gonna table this and would like to come back in. When would the next meeting be?
Okay. Sometime in April, I will give you the exact date.
Okay, yeah, usually it's the 3rd Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
I guess there's one more question I'd like to ask Mr. Singh.
yeah.
20th.
One more question for Mr. Singh.
Uh-huh.
What is the reason, other than finance, that you don't want to present another proposal that is more in line with what they're asking?
Staff has not rejected my site plan. They have given comments on it.
Okay,
Those comments are being addressed. In one of the comments is that I approached the BZA to allow for what I'm suggesting to staff.
okay,
Because the staff does not have the authority to
I got that.
allow.
got that part.
And therefore that your body is the body which I have to approach today, tomorrow, or day after, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And I believe that we have fully satisfied the requirements. Otherwise, staff would have come up with a big objection list. All they have said is, per code, we don't have the authority, so please approach the BZA.
I hear something different. I hear her saying that we have to go through it and make sure that you have satisfied their checklist. And what I'm also hearing is that you've not done that. Is that what you're saying to us?
The checklist is part of the site plan approval, which is being done and completed in compliance with the town code. They're not going to approve the site plan if it doesn't use the town code, simple as that. And I don't. What has.
I think she has-
Can I just list what you have to review Mr. Singh's package for? The request for an exception to the requirements of section 70-448 shall be made in writing to the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Board of Appeals shall review the request for an exception and the water quality impact assessment and may grant the exception with such conditions and safeguards as deemed necessary to further the proposed and intent of this division if the Board of Zoning finds one, granting the exception will not confer upon the applicant any special privileges denied by this division to other property owners in the overlay district. Two, the exception request is not based on conditions or circumstances that are self-created or self-imposed, nor does the request arise from conditions or circumstances either permitted or non-conforming that are related to adjacent parcels. Three, the exception request is the minimum necessary to afford relief. Four, the exception request will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the overlay district, not injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to public welfare, and is not of substantial detriment to water quality. And five, reasonable and appropriate conditions are imposed which will prevent the exception request from causing a degradation of water quality.
I don't think we have the ability, I mentally don't have the ability to process all that right now.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you have to do that, right? Had you read the packet,
Yeah.
right, that's what you'd be checking against.
Okay.
So I'm saying when you go back tonight or this week, after you leave here, before the next meeting on April 20th,
Yeah, April 20th.
you go through the packet and see, has Mr. Singh met all of those requirements?
So there's a list of the requirements and there's a list of what he's offering, and we're going to compare those two and find out if they match. Is that right?
I don't know that there's necessarily a list. He has addressed them, but he addresses them in his application and the entire site plan package that he's included,
That's
which,
gonna take a while.
right.
That's going to take a while.
There's some of it there's some of it you'll be able to skip through, right? You don't need to look at the stormwater management plans and things like that.
I guess there's one other thing I could ask, and that is of Mr. Singh.
They can review the site plan. What I'm saying is that's not pertinent to their decisions.
Okay,
Stormwater management is not pertinent to your decision.
Mr. Singh, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of what you've already submitted that might not be in that plan that matches? Because we're going to be doing it.
I believe the application which has been submitted is very comprehensive.
Okay.
And addresses each of the items which as an applicant I must address.
Okay.
Furthermore, I've demonstrated through the site plan process and the other steps which we have taken so far to date, that we are committed to improving the town of Dumfries. And in hearing Janae, she has said more than once in the write-up that she read, that is this thing going to affect the neighborhood or the next door neighbor? The town of Dumfries is the next door neighbor.
It's kind of,
If it was going to affect, they would have raised their hand many, many years ago.
it's just easier to do this type of work when the language that's being used on both sides coordinates. And to the extent that it doesn't, it creates confusion. That's all.
Just keep in mind, the onus is on the applicant, not on the town.
I get it.
Okay.
I get it. These are the rules that you match the rules. Is it hard to read what you're saying in order to find out if it matches the rules? That works against you. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I think that we've, any more discussion on this? Okay, thanks. All right, the next one is annual organizational discussion, and this election of officers. Nick, I'm gonna let you run this part.
So what the process is all you would do is recommend someone for chairman and also vice chairman, and you're also allowed to nominate yourself as well, or by any other person on the board.
Can we also secretary as well?
Yeah, so that's appointed by the town manager.
Okay,
So that's
Okay,
me.
got it.
Or not actually by the town manager, but by the zoning administrator, but he just so happens to also be the town manager at this point. So that's all.
Okay.
One other thing I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm not sure who's eligible for office anymore. Are you still eligible for office again? I
Me?
think you were on your, I think this would be your third term. I think you're only allowed two.
This will be, I'm finishing my second.
Another term.
No, I'm finishing my first. My first term as president.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, my first term, because, well, this was new to me.
Yeah. I also would like to add as well too, you know, with all four or with you all being on the board for so many years, I believe it's been 6 years probably for you, Mr. Thornton. There are some times where with only 4 members, you might have to do a third term at some point if no one else is willing to. But that's also something that we will take a peek at in the next few months. We're going to go through all of the bylaws for each of the boards and commissions and just see if anything needs to be updated or changed. The last time these were updated was 2018.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure and go through and make sure there's a comprehensive review, and from there, any changes. And of course, town council would have to be the final approval for those changes. But again, all of this is just a formality. So.
Right. Okay.
Anything else?
So
Not for me.
I'll start out. I'm happy with staying president if you'll have me for another year.
Now let's get rid of this guy. I'm fine.
Put it that way.
Yep. And then for a vote, just make a motion to elect the chairman and then the same for a vice chair.
Okay, so I have, I make the motion that we elect the chairman for the board.
Nominate someone someone has to be nominated. So someone say.
Okay, so I nominate myself. You say you nominate yourself. I nominate myself for chairman of the board for the next year.
I said, or how is it?
Yep. We're good. And then vote.
I'll call for the question.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. If you will continue as chairman, then I think that, and I've sat on maybe several meetings.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Right.
And some things maybe, that's why I really wanted us to go into a closed session sometime, because some things need to just be kept among us. But as I said to you before, I think we need to be better prepared in terms of how we run our meetings.
Right.
We have people here that's paid $1,000 to come before us, and we are humbling and bumbling and don't understand what the procedures are. That don't fare well.
Okay.
You know, so I would hope that if you are elected, that you go and go to some of these other meetings or look at Robert's Rules of Order and get it down pat,
Okay,
so that our meetings will run smooth and look like we know what we're doing up here.
that's fair.
Because that concerned me.
Okay.
You know, so again, if you need to provide him with some more training,
Yeah.
because he needs that.
Yeah.
So that these meetings can
Yeah.
go in terms of procedurally, without you always having to say what he got to do,
Yeah.
or the attorney got to tell him what to do. No.
Yeah.
If you're the chairman, be the chair.
Yeah. I also would like to offer, I apologize, Mr. Tony. I could also, the town attorney, again, with everything going on in the town, there's a lot of development projects. I know a lot of permits coming through my office. So haven't got a time to ask our town attorney to come in and do a training for you all, but I will reach out to her tomorrow and find a time that works best for everyone. And then she can.
Train him.
Oh,
I say, so
well,
he can run the meeting.
yeah. Well,
And you're right, I need to attend the other meetings that they have.
yeah. Well, not,
Feel for
Yeah.
the way that the other.
How it flows.
yeah. And
That's a very valid point. I
And-
appreciate that.
And I'd say it's good for everyone just to just to keep up to date with things and just to, just have a reminder. It's good training. We also stream these online. So Planning Commission meets every month. We have to meet every month for Planning Commission. Recommend that you watch those meetings. They're very succinct and very well rehearsed. And I'm not saying this meeting has not been
Executed.
Yeah, it's
Rehearse implies.
but there's, again, that's just part of how things go. We also are just coming out of a pandemic. This is our 5th time in person after being in a pandemic where we were on Zoom. I didn't know what any of you all looked like until October, just to be honest with you. No idea what you all look like. So from there, that's just, that's part of how things go. So.
But again, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because I am told I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
But how long have you been on the committee?
Probably about 6 years.
No, you're wrong.
Yep.
Speaks for itself.
Yep.
So it has nothing to do with you, what you're doing. If you're the chair, you know what I mean? And you're vigilant about what you, and you appear to be serious. I've been impressed with your seriousness, but then prepare yourself so that we can flow and look like we all, like Mr. Thornton, like Mr. Your colleague Thornton?
Yeah.
He ain't running the meeting, you are.
Got
You follow me? And I'm being kind of jovial with that, because, you add a lot to it without a question. But the leadership should come from the chair.
Got it.
Am I correct?
Yep.
All right. So, and I want to close that, and I want to keep beating that old horse now. So.
But Tony, you didn't show up at our last meeting and you knew you weren't going to show up at our last meeting. That is unforgettable.
Mr. Thornton, when was the last meeting? Didn't you and I talk on the phone?
Yeah.
You told me you were sick, there was going to be no meeting. So don't come with all that.
Yeah,
you
so
say me probably let's do that, but don't sit on the board and the podium. If you want to say something to me, probably didn't do that. But don't sit here on this forum and accuse me of not attending the meeting, and it's unforgivable because I didn't tell you.
I was told that you can confirm this.
Well, ask Mr. Cicero.
Yeah. So what?
Let's finish the issue.
Yeah. So let's
back to
That's part of our meeting, is it not? Discuss.
No, we are discussing the chairperson. We just made a vote for, he nominated himself and we're voting on him. There's some other issues, then let's do that. But let's continue this.
Okay.
See what I'm talking about? You running me?
So,
You called the question.
You were just voting.
okay, so the next one is the vice chair. And would you be willing to be vice chair?
No, I think Mr. Thornton.
Would you be willing to?
Yeah, I think Mr. Thornton would do a good job of that.
Was that?
I'd be willing to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
And I
So I'd like to
was,
nominate you for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Okay. All for Mr. Thornton?
All right.
Okay, there we go.
Unanimous.
So there's the officers for next year. And
Are there any other issues? Maybe you got something else you want to say?
that's all that I have. I just wanted to throw out, I apologize for the last minute calling out because I was sick, but it happens always occasionally. Okay, at this time, anything left to discuss?
Well, I want to make a closing statement. I've always enjoyed, coming together with boards, and I've been doing this for quite a while in this town, fortunately. And hopefully I've been a contributing factor, I'm just not sitting here. But, and I don't want it to appear that anything is contentious because I got a lot of respect for Mr. Thornton.
Yeah.
And, I think you shared some music with me. And we got some other little personal things to go along, Although the fact that you disagree with somebody doesn't mean that you are disagreeable towards him. So I want to be clear with that. I'm very willing to listen to you, Mr. Thornton, anytime because you bring very valid points and they're well thought out and well presented.
Thanks, sir.
So I'm very open, whether I agree or disagree. So I try to be as thorough as you in terms of voicing my position also.
Oh,
Absolutely. And I think that is the value of any kind of board.
That's what we're here for.
You got 4 people here whose perception is a little different. We all are here for the same purpose.
Yep.
You know, to support the town and do what we're supposed to do as members of this board. And I've been trained, I was trained by Mr. Chairman.
So was that?
Okay, so we are trained. So there's assertion that somebody's not trained. I don't know who, maybe one of them.
No, we want
We
to
are.
present class.
Okay, so
By the way,
let me finish.
by the
Yeah,
way,
but I just wanted to say thank you, and Mr. Cicero, and pleasure meeting our town public works director. Thank you and welcome.
you too, Mr. Singh.
Okay. And
All
I
right,
guess
thank you, Mr. Singh.
this official closes
Thank
the,
you.
close the meeting. Thank you for
I
your
wasn't
time.
finished, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was trying to, because I think he wanted to say something too. But anyway, I just wanted to close it out. Okay, I'm good.
Are we closing?
Yes.
But I still want to say this. So if you would like would you like some training?
Well, actually, since we're doing closing, I would like to say that I've enjoyed being on this board immensely since April when we were still on Zoom. But I am going to have to resign as I'll be moving to Manhattan next month.
Oh,
Well, congratulations.
Thank
We'll
you.
miss you.
yeah.
I was gonna talk to you after the meeting, but since, let me just get it on the record.
I appreciate your dedication over the last year, and thank you so much.
Thanks.
It was a pleasure working with you. This
Yes,
short
I really
period of time.
enjoyed it.
Come back to our small town once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
See how we progress.
Well, I also would like to add to on that note, if you all know anyone who would
Really.
like to be on the BZA who resides in town, please let them know. Preferably, we'd like to have 5 members on the board. We are allowed to have someone from Plan Commission on the BZA, so I could reach out to some of them and maybe see if they would like to join as well. But yeah, that's all I have to add. Thank you so much.
Of the planning commission.
What?
One member of the planning commission.
Yep, just one of the members. Yep. Thank you so much, everyone.
All
All
right.
right.
And the inverse of that is you're allowed to also serve.
Excuse me.
One person from here.
Yeah,
Right, that's it.
thank you.